For our next conversation, please give a hand to President and CEO of the Education Trust, Jonathan King.
Good afternoon, everyone. Wow. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to take a moment just to frame the panel discussion that we're about to have. The goal of this discussion is to make the connection between the challenges we've been talking about all morning and issues of policy. And I want to challenge us all to think about the difference between the work that we're doing every day and the policy change we hope to see in the world. And I want to urge us to think about policy as being the life-saving difference for young people, for adults who are struggling, for our communities. For me, the policy difference that was life-saving and life-changing was having access to a quality teacher. I grew up in New York City. I grew up in Brooklyn. Both my parents passed away when I was a kid. My mom when I was 8, my dad when I was 12. And after my mom passed, when I lived with my dad was quite sick with undiagnosed Alzheimer's. So home was this place that was scary and unstable and inconsistent. Some nights my father would talk to me, some nights he wouldn't. Some nights he'd be mad, some nights he wouldn't say anything at all. I can recall one night he woke me up at 2 in the morning, told me it was time to go to school. And I didn't know why. And I remember being on the staircase in our house, holding on to the banisters. My father pulled me on the stairs, and I kept saying to him, "Daddy, it's not time to go to school. It's the middle of the night." And I didn't understand why he was doing that. That's what home was like. But the reason I'm alive today, the reason I'm standing here today, is that I was blessed to have a series of amazing New York City public school teachers. My teacher, Mr. Oswald, in 4th, 5th, 6th grade, made school this place that was compelling and engaging and interesting. We did productions of Midsummer Night's Dream and Alice in Wonderland in his class. I always tell folks I was the rose in Alice in Wonderland. Imagine me with a big red felt petal sticking out of my head. Right? He saved my life. And I often think if I was one of the many young people who was assigned to a teacher who wasn't well prepared, who didn't have an engaging classroom, I wouldn't be alive today, or I'd be in prison today. Having a good teacher changed the trajectory of my life. That is why I say policy makes a life-saving difference. Now, I became a teacher and a principal to try to do for other kids what Mr. Osterwald had done for me, but I got into policy work and was commissioner here in New York and Secretary of Education for President Obama because I understand that unless we change policy, we can't change outcomes at scale. So that's the goal of this panel, to frame a conversation about the policy difference we all need to make, whether we are in philanthropy or running community-based organizations. How do we take the conversation up a notch to think about how we scale things that work and how we change conditions that get in the way? I think about when I was running a network of schools in New York City, being in a kindergarten classroom and having kindergartners who would hold the book upside down because they were so unfamiliar with letters. Right? That's a policy problem. That's because of a whole set of things that kids did not get, 0 to 4, that they wound up in that kindergarten classroom without the skills they needed to even know what letters look like. And we know that those problems start very early, and they're at the intersection of health and economic opportunity and housing and education. Right? We know that in the United States, we don't do a very good job on maternal health care. In fact, in this city, African-American women are 12 times as likely to die in childbirth as white women. That's a policy problem. Right? And then when kids are born, often their families don't have the support they need. That's a policy problem. Many of our international competitors provide regular visitation by nurses early in a child's life so that the family has the support and guidance they need. It's a policy question. Many families struggle to afford quality child care. That's a policy question. Many families don't have access to good parental leave policy. And so they can't be with their child. They can't build that emotional attachment that is so essential for kids' success. That's a policy problem. And so, again, I want to challenge us in this conversation to think policy.